Hello, Zuko here, and today I'm going to be talking about my top 10 favorite books that I have read in 2020. I should preface this by saying that I'm only picking like one book per author, because otherwise I could just pick like an entire series for like half the top 10 books, and that seems like cheating. So I'm just gonna go for it in one book per series. So I'll pick my favorite books in the series that I really liked. Okay, let's go. So first is a very recent read, which is Sleeping Giants by Sylvain Neuvel. I did not expect to enjoy this series at all. I didn't really know what to go into, or what I was going into when I started it, because on BookTube it was always just described as a girl on a bike ride falls into a giant metal hand underground in a hole. This is a sci-fi novel about the giant metal person whose hand the girl fell into 20 years later, when the girl is old enough and happened to become a scientist working on uncovering this metal person. This is told in like files and interviews in a similar vein to the Illuminae series, and I really enjoy that way of telling sci-fi stories, I guess, because I'm not a big sci-fi fan on my own. So yeah, there is this. Number 9 is Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. I like Rainbow Rowell's books for the most part. I didn't like Eleanor and Park. I read that immediately. It was like, you're gone. I don't need to ever think of you again. And I'm like, the whole idea of attachments makes me feel kind of icky, so I don't think I'm going to read that. But I read this and I really enjoyed it. I think that there is a sweet romance in this. I really like the addition of this like made up fandom, which I guess is now a real fandom because Carry On is a book. But I like college setting books. I like books that aren't just about high schoolers and their high school problems. This feels more applicable to young adult life. And it just feels like super relatable. And I also like the inclusion of like having a parent with mental illness. I thought that this dealt with like absent family and stuff like that really well, and I super enjoyed it. Number 8 is We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. This is a contemporary book about a summer home, and I can't really talk too much more about it without giving away spoilers, but even though the twists and turns and stuff in this book didn't hit me as big as they could have, as I had just read another book with kind of similar surprises, I guess, I really enjoyed this book. I thought that the way it was written was really good, and had I not just like read something kind of similar, I would not have been looking out to figure out the twists and stuff in this. So I really enjoyed this. Number 7 is Illuminae by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This is book 1 in the Illuminae files. This is another sci-fi series, which is, of course, as I said, told in like files and emails, and like there's redacted statements, and like I have not actually read the physical copy of this. I listened to the audiobook, which is also what I did with Sleeping Giants. Totally brain blanked there. But these books are so good in that full cast audiobook format that I love them. I just had such a fun time with this series. I didn't love the third book as much, but that's fine. I really liked the first and second book, and I liked the conclusion of the third book. I think I was burning out by the time I read the third book. So there's this. Number 6 is Mooncakes by Wendy Zhu and Suzanne Walker. This is a sweet graphic novel. It is queer. It has good like non-binary rep and deaf rep. It was so cute. It melted my heart. I loved it. This is about a witch and a werewolf who have to fight evil, and it's just so cute. And I loved it. I loved it. You should read it. There's this. Number 5 is Sadie by Courtney Summers. Now, specifically the audiobook for this, because this book has like kind of split narrations and stuff, and part of it is a podcast. Audiobook has a full cast. Can't recommend it enough. It was great. It felt like a thriller crime podcast. I loved it. This was great. This is a crime story about a girl whose sister goes missing. I can't. This book was so good. Also listen to this. Number 4 is Vasili The Night by Sarah Porter. This is a retelling of an old Russian fairy tale, Vasili the Beautiful. This is a Baba Yaga story, and it was just such an interesting reimagining. I loved it. It was bizarre, but in the same way that Spirited Away is bizarre, where you're like, I don't really understand why things are like this, but I'm willing to accept it because it seems really magical. And I just love this book. It had big Spirited Away, Alice in Wonderland vibes. Number 3 is The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. This is book 1 in the Raven cycle. I have not historically enjoyed Maggie Stiefvater's books. I found that all the Crooked Saints and Scorpio races were very dull, and I didn't care about them. But this book had such vibrant, interesting characters that I just fell in love with all of them immediately. I binge read the whole series. I didn't think I was gonna like it at all. Like, I was prepared to read the first one and go, well, that's it. And I loved it. The characters in this are amazing. It's a character-driven story, and like sometimes the plot is like meh, but the characters are always like just perfect. I love them. It was great. Number 2 is The Darkest Part of the Forest by Holly Black. I thought about putting like The Cruel Prince on here, but that felt cheap. This was my like introduction into Holly Black's Fae Worlds, and I loved it. It was... Zappa, you're snoring, Bubba. You done? Thank you. This book is about a town in which there is a forest that has a glass coffin, and inside the glass coffin is a sleeping boy with horns. And this town is really known for all of its fae activity. I loved this. I loved this. This whole story is like an energy I didn't know I needed from books, but that I desperately need, and I can't deal with like Holly Black's worlds. I think that her world building is great, and it's just exactly up my alley, and I didn't think it would be, but it is. So, fae books by Holly Black, any of them really, but this one specifically is my number 2. And if you've been here for any amount of time, you will know that my favorite book this year has been Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I finally got around to reading this year, and I fell in love. The story is impressive and great. The characters are great. I wish I could write half as well as Leigh Bardugo, because like, holy shit, her characters are just like all so distinct from each other in a way that I just could never. I didn't know I wanted fantasy books. I didn't know I wanted heist novels, and it turns out I want both of those. And also more morally great characters, and also my dog is snoring behind the camera. So I freaking adored this book. It was amazing. It's 10 out of 10 stars, 1,000 out of 10 stars. This is my favorite. It's so beautiful. I loved it. I can't stress enough how much you should read it if you haven't already. Unless you're my friend who doesn't like any of the same books I like, then don't read it, because you're gonna not like it, and then I'm gonna, I don't know, be sad and disappointed in you. So, yeah. So that is it for my top 10 books that I read in 2020. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I will see you whenever I do my next video.